Welcome back to the Nancy Levin Show. I am really excited for the episode that we've got in store for you. I am bringing you back my guest, Britt Frank. This is her second time on the show. She is a licensed neuropsychotherapist, speaker, and the author of The Science of Stuck and her brand new book, Align Your Mind. She received her BA from Duke University and her master's from the University of Kansas, where she later became an award-winning instructor. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Esquire magazine, Forbes, NPR, and Mind Body Green. And again, we are here today to talk about her amazing new book, Align Your Mind, Tame Your Inner Critic, and make peace with your shadow using the power of parts work. Hi, Britt.
Hi, it's so good to see you again. Thanks for having me back.
I've been like bubbling with excitement to have this conversation with you because it is such a fertile ground, this conversation of align your mind and this intersection of shadow work and parts work, IFS, and of course, taming the inner critic with which we are all familiar. So, as I was reading the book, there's so many juicy places to dive in. And one of the things I really love is how you make this very accessible and you really give us ways to work with ourselves. I am always going to be the biggest advocate for doing the work. And it's not by any means just a book, if you will, but it's really a guidebook. It really is a way to come back to ourselves. And that's where my passion is as well. So first, I just want to thank you for putting this book out in the world. And I geek out at this intersection of IFS and shadow work. And so let's just take a moment here for anyone listening who isn't familiar with IFS, internal family systems work, parts work, share about what that is from your perspective, your definition, share about the way that you connect it with shadow work. I know my listeners have heard me talk about shadow work ad nauseum, but share a little bit about the way that you talk about the intersection.
Yeah. And, really, I am the ultimate shadow worker. I'm just masquerading as a clinician with neuroscience training, just because that's the easiest way to get the work across the threshold. So the way I define shadow work, all it is, simply put, is anything that we are disconnected from that is true about us. And that's not just our flaws. It's our strengths and our gifts and our talent. Most people are quick to say, yeah, I suck. But most people are very disconnected from their power, from their voice, from their desire. And shadow work is simply the process of reconnecting you with what is in fact true about you, the good, the bad, all of the things. And IFS, which the easiest way to explain IFS is if you've seen the movie Inside Out, it's like that, but evidence-based, where we have all of these different parts of ourselves. The part of me that wants to go to the gym and the part of me that's binge watching White Lotus or whatever people are watching right now. And what do we do with these parts of us? The part of us that criticizes, the part of us that's afraid, the part that loves our family, and the part that wants to run for the hills screaming on some days. And IFS really is shadow work in practice, made really practical, because when you connect with all the disconnected parts of yourself, that is shadow work. Anytime you honor your wins, shadow work. Anytime you connect with the reality of a poor choice, shadow work. So to me, IFS, the intersection, if it was two circles, would very much be over, not even a Venn diagram. IFS is shadow work is IFS. The two are inextricably linked.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. And again, it is that embracing of the wholeness of ourselves. So it's not the good or bad. It's not the either or. It's the both and it's the everything of it.
What's so wild, and this is really bonkers to me, and connecting with this was very much a mind trip. The closer to wholeness we get, the more fragmented we actually need to be. And So this idea that, just kill your ego, banish your inner critic, tell fear to take a hike, tell the bad parts of you that you don't like them, and somehow that will make you whole is a total myth. Wholeness requires all of the parts, the good, the ones we think are bad. And that was kind of mind blowing to me that I don't need to get, wholeness and healing is not about erasing our parts.
Right.
It's about harmonizing them so we can all get along better together. It's very much like a family up there in our minds.
100%. I love that you equated it to Inside Out. I often say the same thing, so it's perfect. Yeah. So let's get into it around the inner critic. You present the inner critic as a protector, not a predator.
And everyone gets very bristly when I say that. The inner critic's on your side. Well, that's an abusive relationship and I don't want it. And I'm like, okay, yes, it's not a great relationship. Most of us, if we're not taught how to relate to our critic, are going to have a hostile relationship. But here's the thing. If you're fighting against yourself, you're never going to win, even if you win. If you tell the inner critic to shut up and leave me alone, that's a part of you. That's like telling one of your kids, shut up and leave me alone. They may go quiet for a little, but the relationship isn't served by that. And so if we can approach our inner critic like a well-meaning, but very poorly informed helper, then we can develop a better relationship. And my take is, what if you can change the inner critic's voice from a bully into a coach? And I know that you know this because any person who works with high performance people, coaching them, knows you're not going to always be like, oh, poor you. Yeah, don't do the thing. Just sit down. Don't launch that business. It's hard. Don't go to the gym. It's raining. A high performance coach knows how to get the best performance out of a person without breaking them down. Our inner critic has all the raw materials for the ultimate high performance coach. We just need to know how to decode its message.
I love that. And I love that even in the book, there are examples and exercises around that shift, around the reframe of the bully to the coach.
Exactly. And I'm not a sports person, but you can go on YouTube and Google like greatest coach meltdowns of all time. And you'll see these like sports coaches throwing chairs and breaking hockey sticks and having an absolute tantrum.
Yeah.
That's sort of how it feels in our minds with our inner critic. But there's also the greatest coaches of all time. And watch any movie with a locker room speech with a coach.
Sure.
And that's when we can have that voice inside our head that sounds like that. Life changes dramatically. And it's a lot of fun. I don't always love the coaching I get from my inner voices, but I'm always glad I work with them because I wouldn't do anything if I didn't have a coach. Like we need coaches as humans. And we need coaches inside our mind too, as within, so without. We need it both.
Absolutely. So you talk about the inner critic. You also talk about our compulsive parts.
Yes.
Share a bit about those parts.
And I know I shared with you the first time for people who aren't familiar with my work.
Yeah.
Like I sound great on paper and all of what you read about my bio is true, but also a hot mess train wreck of a human, smoking crystal meth in a dirty bathroom before a board meeting, working full time and still being an absolute epic chaotic failure behind the scenes. And I think a lot of people can relate to, I'm doing fine. I'm doing the things, but at night, I do not feel like the best version of me. Not everyone is smoking meth behind closed doors, but I hope. But
but metaphorically, we are.
It's so funny. I actually say that in my corporate keynote speech. I'm like, we all have our meth pipe moments. Your version of 5 a.m. in the bathroom going, what am I doing? How could I have said that? And we all have compulsive habits that we don't like. And it's easy to be like, well, it's not like I'm smoking meth, but whatever the compulsive thing you do, it's taking away your energy to do what you want to be doing and to be who you want to show up as. And again, my argument is Partsworks frame is, what if we could rethink those compulsive parts, not like character defects or moral failings or the enemies within, but what if they're really, really trying to keep us alive? And until we relate to them in a different way, they're going to go into autopilot. And brains aren't wired for success, survival, and love. Brains are wired for survival, which means stay small, stay safe. Now, people will be like, well, how can smoking meth keep you safe? Well, obviously, that's going to kill you eventually. However, while I was smoking meth, I didn't have to worry about failing about life because I wasn't doing anything. And I didn't have to worry about vulnerability in relationships because I wasn't in them. And so our compulsive parts are, again, well-meaning, but very ill-equipped helpers. We start with the assumption that our brain is on our side, not to justify behavior, but to understand there's no part of your inner world that's out to get you. Everything, anxiety, self-sabotage, addiction, the function of all of that is protective, not destructive. And that really changes how we experience our own humanity.
And I think it's especially fascinating for those of us who are over functioning and who are projecting an image of high achieving success to the outside world. And on the inside, we feel like a shit show. And
So
this is pervasive. This is like epidemic proportion I see in women specifically across the board.
It's so real. And that's why the emphasis on do well isn't the whole story, because
Right.
I know that you know these people, women specifically, who can do everything. They're Wonder Woman, but it's not enough to do well. We actually want to be well. We don't want to just project the things. We want to embody the things. What's the point of our very short human experience to do all the things well if we're not going to be able to enjoy them or go to sleep happy that the molecule mush that is us exists?
Yeah. And I think, bringing the piece of self-worth in here is really essential, because when we are so addicted to the external validation and when our worth is dependent on what we do, what we achieve, what we produce, we lose sight of the inherent worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder where that loops in for you here.
I'm smiling because I used to think, and I know I'm not alone, that if I have self-worth, I won't achieve as much. Somehow, if I like myself, that'll make me lazy and unmotivated, and I won't have any drive to do anything. And this myth that self-love and self-compassion is equivalent to do nothing is the biggest myth that somehow we all learn to buy into. A person that is filled with self-worth doesn't mean that you don't have pain and imposter syndrome and critics. Like, we all have voices. That's never going away. But the idea that self-love equals laziness is just not true. The more full of yourself, if you will, even that expression, I don't want to be full of myself. That's narcissistic. A narcissist is empty of self. A narcissist has no self. That's the problem. The more full of actual self energy you are, the more you're going to want to create and produce and innovate and do, but from a place of love, not fear.
I am so excited to hear you say this. I had a whole conversation yesterday inside of my Levin Life Coach Academy training, the conversation around the reclaiming of the quality of selfish, which is, so triggering for so many, because we are conditioned to be selfless, and right there in that word, less self, and that stepping into the ownership of selfish as supportive. I often will say, I think selfish, self-love, and self-care are three sisters who support us in honoring ourselves. And as part of the conversation we were having earlier, there are no bad parts, there are no bad qualities, and the untapped resource and power in the parts of us we've pushed away is just a treasure trove waiting for us to tap into. And I feel like that, especially with selfish.
And I'll give you a really practical example too, not just with selfishness, but with this idea that bad qualities are treasure troves, which they are. And Jung has said that. And I truly believe that. My meth parts, the parts of me that liked speed a lot. So, okay, well, what could possibly be good about the parts of you that are addicted to speed? Okay, well, I don't do drugs anymore. However, the delusional parts of me that were like, let's go as fast as humanly possible on crystal meth, that is a skill set that is transferable to the book publishing process. And I know you know this. You have to be a little delusional and a little speedy to write a book and to get it finished and to hit the deadline and to be told no 5,000 times and to keep pushing. It's like, no, I want this. And the drug addict mantra, it's not a good one, is I want what I want. I'm going to get what I want when I want it. But which is selfish, right? But that selfishness through the lens of self-love and self-care and self-trust is persistence. is resilience. That's the golden side of the selfish quality is people who are full of self-care, self-love, and self-trust and selfish don't act like jerks. I'm not a mean person. I care deeply about the people in my life. But if I'm not full of self, I have nothing to give them except fumes. And then I'm resentful for giving it. And then the relationship's not served by resentful giving.
I love this. Thank you so much for sharing that. You also talk about our younger parts. So share a bit about those parts of ourselves that really are stuck and those pieces, the ways in which we can work with them.
So this is such a heart topic for me. Like inner child work is, I think it was first originated in the 70s. And I know lots of different modalities use the idea of the inner child. Parts work really expands that to, oh, you don't just have an inner child. You have inner children on children. I mean, every age that you've ever been is a piece of who you are now, which means you don't only have an inner 5-year-old, you have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old. You have this whole community of little people. And I was saying this to a parent and they were like, I'm so sick of parenting human children. And now you're telling me I have to parent a whole bunch of psychic, intrapsychic, psychological children too. No, I don't want to. But the thing is like, whether you want to or not, it's a lot easier to connect with our younger parts and parent them. And really, again, practically speaking, this means tending to your voices like you would a child. So when you want to go to the gym and you hear that little kid voice going, I don't want to, it's cold and it's early and I just want to scroll on my phone and I'll do it tomorrow. A loving parent doesn't say, shut up. But a loving parent also doesn't indulge that and say, oh, you're right. You know what? You just stay in bed for another 6 hours. You don't need to go to school. A loving self-parent can say to that younger voice, I know, validate it. I know it's cold. I know it's early. And this is important to us. So up we go. And then get out of bed and put your shoes on and get out the door. But self-parenting is the way of when you speak to yourself as a loving parent. Again, it doesn't create inertia. It creates momentum. We get stuck because any parent of an actual toddler knows, try fighting with a toddler. Try fighting with a teenager. They're going to win every single time unless there's a relationship there that can tolerate the discomfort enough to move things forward. And that's the relationship with our inner children.
It's not so much about the motivation, but it is about the momentum. And
Yes.
what are the ways in which we can befriend the parts and not exile the parts and actually let the parts be there, but decide which one we're going to indulge.
Yes, and when and how. It's really, and I don't have actual kids. I have enough like psychic kids.
Same.
I have those, yeah, no extra ones for me. Thank you. But like, there's 4, and this has been studied for decades, that there's 4 primary parenting styles. And if you look at parenting human children or high performance coaching or leadership, or it's all the same stuff. It's the basic styles of leading another person are permissive, where you indulge, avoidant, where you're not there at all, authoritarian, where you're a jerk and a taskmaster, or authoritative, which is, I recognize you have your feelings about a thing. I am in charge, and this is what we're doing. Every study shows that authoritative leadership is best. Authoritative parenting is best. Why don't we just take that same exact existing thing, apply it to ourselves? Indulgence is not kind. Being permissive is not loving. It's not loving to myself to say, I'm just going to indulge my whim for drugs. Like, drugs still sound good to me. It's not like that voice is gone. Like, oh, it's been a hard day. Let's go get some opiates. Like, I don't do that, but it's still there. A loving self-parent goes, yeah, I can see where you'd want to do that. I can see where you'd want to eat the whole gallon of ice cream, or I could see where you would want to not whatever. And I love you too much. I love you enough to validate how you're feeling, but I love you too much to indulge this because it's not good for us.
So important. You know, one of the things that I have been talking about lately, and I'm especially finding this with women at midlife, is this, first of all, reinvention. And I talk about reinvention as the return to the essence of the truth of who we are before we began packaging ourselves to be digestible to everyone else around us, / before we started shoving shit in the shadow and exiling parts, and that we don't actually have to burn it all down or blow it all up, but it is about alignment. And you talk about alignment, as actions matching values, which I am completely aligned with. So what would you invite our listeners into if someone's listening to this and they're resonating? What are some of the first ways, practical, tactical ways to begin approaching this work?
Well, I didn't talk about this in the book at all, but I'll say, I don't think I've said it on a podcast ever, but I adore you. Say it to you.
Exclusive. We've got it here first.
Yeah, this is not content available anywhere else. As a midlife woman, and for midlife women, perimenopause and menopause is going to take every shadow you have ever suppressed and throw it in your face so loudly.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
You can't ignore. And again, the biology of this stage of life intersects the psychological, spiritual, because perimenopause and menopause does not allow you a free ride around your shadows. It's like they're here. And so I would invite listeners to know your hormones are going to it's not just medical. Like, yes, and hello, it hit me so hard in the face. All of a sudden, everything I thought I knew about myself was like, who am I? What's going on? Why am I so hot? Do I have to make protein a full-time job? But like looking at this transition, not as just a medical issue or some irritants, but looking at this hormonal shift as a initiation, not into our annihilation. Like this whole thing of fertility is femininity is BS. It's like the initiation of midlife women's stuff is a call to our second becoming. And our womb, which is, was once originally designed to house another, is, whether you have kids or not, is now designed to house yourself. So like my womb space, whether or not you have a uterus, doesn't matter. Like the space is for us to birth ourselves. And so whether you had a good childhood or a bad one, I would invite you, if you're a midlife woman, to look at the medical stuff as an initiation and not just an annoyance. Yes, it's annoying, but like, oh my gosh, what an opportunity.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's why I feel like I'm really on the bandwagon about this right now. I mean, of course, I am now postmenopausal, and I am in a reckoning with everything that is alive in me and what is available for me now that wasn't actually before. And that there are ways in which it is a rebirth. There are ways in which it is the most powerful and potent and fertile time that I have ever experienced.
It's so true. So that's my to answer your question in a very long-winded, esoteric way. We're not done. If you ladies, we're just getting started. Like, I think it was Jung that said life begins at 40 and everything up until then is research. I'm like, forget that. Life begins at perimenopause, because then you get to birth yourself.
Yeah. The other thing I've really been sort of geeking out on around all of this is what really truly happens in the transformation and the metamorphosis of a caterpillar into the butterfly. It's that the caterpillar completely disintegrates down to the imaginal cells, and the imaginal cells then give birth to the butterfly. And then to me, I map that back to what I said about reinvention. It is that return to the essence of the truth of who you are. And now you get to actually live it. Carol Gilligan did a study in the 1980s of young girls. And at 9, they were super clear on what they wanted. By 11, they had self-doubt. And by 13, they had no sense of what they wanted and deferred to everyone else around them. And then that at perimenopause and menopause, our own conviction returns to us.
Okay, I've got goosebumps.
Right?
I was right. Like, and I didn't know about that study. Oh my God.
But it makes so much sense. And looking at it through the lens of shadow and through the lens of parts work, it's this ultimate reclaiming.
Exactly. I was going to say the same thing. The way IFS and parts work really beautifully intersect with this is great. All of this perimenopause is our initiation and the return to the knowing. Parts work is the how. Parts work is the vehicle that reconnects you to your essence. And so I'm like, parts work and shadow work are in fact one and the same.
I love this so much. This is so super juicy to me.
I just want to talk about like perimenopause and the second spring all day. It's alive for me now reasonably. It's like the Wild West inside my body, but really relating to the absolute chaotic tornado inside us as the whisperings. They're not just symptoms. They're clues. They're treasure maps. And if I don't enjoy feeling the physiology of anxiety and of all of the different things, but if we can look at even our scariest symptoms as a treasure map, with the assumption that our brain's on our side, our mind loves us. It loves us so much, but it doesn't have updated information until we train it.
Right. Right. And I think that's the big piece, because all these parts of ourselves that we have rejected, that now when we're able to reconnect with them and really connect with the power available to us inside of them, we become unstoppable.
It's so good. It's so true.
I had no idea we would go in this direction, but I'm really excited we have, because it's something that I feel that's really lighting me up right now. And it seems like it is for you too.
Well, this idea that there's not one part of us that goes to waste. Mm-hmm. And I do think there's a wellness sort of spiritual mythology that wholeness is the absence of parts and we become this one unified thing. And that's just not, if you look at nature, every complex system, a flower, an atom, a bug is made up of all of these different parts and systems all working together in service of something bigger. And our minds are the same way. Our mind is not this one evil empire trying to ruin us. It's trying to, your mind's just on your team. It's your biggest fan.
Yeah. So it is that, I mean, and it's about then integration instead of separation. Yes. And how do we really be with ourselves in that integration so that we can be in loving acceptance.
Exactly. And acceptance doesn't mean permission. Acceptance means recognition of what is. Value and worthiness are inherent. What you do doesn't change that. Yes. But your life's going to be a lot less pleasant if you're unaligned with what you actually value and what you do. And that's where it's not a moral issue. It's an alignment issue. You will feel better if your values and your choices are congruent.
Oh my goodness. Britt, I love you so much. I love the way that you are bringing this work into the world. I already want to bring you back for a third time to go.
Again. Oh my gosh.
I know. I already want to do like a whole other deep dive with you around everything that we're touching on here. And I'm so excited for the book to get into people's hands.
Oh, thank you. This was the book. I mean, I really loved writing The Science of Stuck, but parts work is my first love when it comes to all the things. And I was so delighted. And Dr. Richard Schwartz, who created Internal Family Systems, very generously gave his endorsement on my going rogue with his model. And so I'm very grateful that this idea chose me and I got to birth it.
Oh, so where's the best place for people to get the book, to connect with you?
Yes. So you can get the book everywhere people buy books, although I would always say support your local booksellers if possible. Find me at brittfrank.com or on Instagram at Britt Frank.
And I have to just leave a little moment here for you to share what you're doing tomorrow, even before your book comes out next week.
Oh my gosh. I decided at the age of 37 to take up acrobatics just because it sounded fun to hang upside down from the ceiling and do tricks. It's really hard. And at 45, I am doing a solo in a circus show tomorrow night in a theater in sequence. Very high up, upside down in front of a paying audience. And I am thoroughly delighted at the capacity one has if one is so inclined. And I have the mobility to do it. And I will be doing circus on an aerial hoop tomorrow night and Saturday and Sunday.
I'm so excited for you. And of course, by the time that people get to hear this in a few weeks from now, this will all be in the past. But I am just rooting for you and so excited for you to have this experience. And I love that it's all happening in this sort of compressed timeline with you doing that and your book coming out at the same time. What a ride. What a high. Who needs math?
Big lips. Who needs math? Hashtag.
I love you. I appreciate you. And again, thanks for being here. And I'm going to bring you back again. Don't you worry.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone listening. And we'll be back again next week.